How's that? It's Brendan here from Infinity Investments, and it's a cold, sunny day in Cape Town today. At least we've had some rain, a little bit of snow in the mountains, and it's an absolutely beautiful day. Just freezing cold. So what I wanted to talk about today is not what we buy in terms of property, but what we don't buy, because I think there's some lessons. Like if I have to think back over the years that I've been doing property, when I first started, I mean, I got my real estate license in 1998 when I was 18 years old, because my dad said property is where the money is. Property is where you can be creative, always be learning, work with great people, and unfortunately interest rates were 25.5% in 1998. So needless to say, I sold nothing. But I don't think it was the interest rates that made me sell nothing. It was probably just my skill set, because I didn't know anything back then. But I did start learning, and then I went into some other businesses, and through the other businesses generated some money, and then slowly started buying some properties, and bought some townhouses in South Africa. Bought a house, bought another house, bought a holiday house, which we rented out for income. So it wasn't just for holiday. But I figured, it would be fun to have a holiday house that I could at least use in between renting it out, and if it could cover its own cost, I could go on holiday for free. So it worked for a while, and sold that house, or at least the shares in that house, because we did it in a partnership with someone else, and we sold that before we went traveling to the UK in 2010. But through all of this stuff, learned some valuable lessons. One of them being, if I can't control the building, I don't buy. So body corporates have a hell of a lot of power. And I'll give you an example. So in the US, helped some clients buy a bunch of condos in Orlando primarily. We did single family homes in Memphis, single family homes in Atlanta, in Oklahoma City. We did mostly condos in Orlando because they were insanely cheap. You could buy a condo for $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 and rent it out for $800 to $900 a month. The problem was the homeowners association. So one, we struggled to get finance on condos right when we were coming out of the subprime crisis. Banks just didn't want to loan against those types of assets. So we generally had to pay cash for them. And when we did get finance, the finance was private money lending, which gave us interest rates of between 9 and about 12%. So the money was expensive, but it did allow us to buy lots of assets at a reasonably good discount. However, the homeowners fees, so if you bought a 2-bedroom apartment or a 2-bedroom condo for, let's say, $60,000, the homeowners association fees would be $400 a month. So if that property stands vacant for any length of time, you have to find that $400 a month and pay in. So while everything works on a great spreadsheet, if you've got any vacancy, if it takes 2 months or 3 months to do a renovation and place a tenant, and then the tenant moves out and you've got another 3 or 4 weeks vacant every year, you are going to have vacancies in property. Is going to happen. If you don't know that, you're not in property. So we learned a great lesson is the homeowners fees can kill your cash flow and also force you into a negative cash flow scenario even when you've paid cash for the property. If you've got no debt on the property and you don't have a tenant, you're still going to be paying in $400, $500 a month after property taxes and all the rest of the stuff's taken into account. The other problem is the cost of management. So if I'm renting out a condo or a single family home, typically the rental manager is taking a placement fee of usually around half a month to the first month's rental. So if we're renting it out for $1,200 or $1,500 a month, they're going to take the first month's rental as a placement fee. Then on top of that, they're going to take between 8 and 10% a year of the income, which means if I'm renting it out for $1,200 a month, it's going to be, call it 14, 15 grand a year. The rental manager is going to take $1,500 of that money straight off the top, plus the placement fee. So they're making $3,000 per year out of my property with no risk. Granted, it is on performance, so they can only take that when they've placed tenants. However, when I'm renting out multifamily properties, multifamily being blocks of apartments. So let's say I've got 140 or 150 units. We just closed on a property last week. It was $18.3 million, 140 units in Atlanta. Amazing property. On this one, we're paying 3.25%. It's either 3.25 or 3.5 of income for property management, for very, very professional property management. So compared to paying 10% a year, I'd much rather be paying 3.5% per year. Makes a bit of sense. If we also control 140 units and I own the building, I've got all the expenses related to the building, it means I control the rules in the building, compared to homeowners associations or body corporates that I'll give you an example. We bought a property in Orlando in conjunction with an investor. Small little condo, and it was a beautiful property, very, very well maintained at a great price. And the problem was the homeowners association kept vetting the tenants and not allowing any of the credit-worthy great tenants to actually sign a lease. So while we had a property manager on the one hand marketing and getting great leads through the door, when they were ready to sign a lease, the homeowners association had to check the tenant, and in checking the tenant, they had the ultimate say on whether they would allow that tenant to become a part of the community. And we ended up in a situation where that property was vacant for over 7 months because the homeowners association was simply full of shite. So with a homeowners association, you end up, if it is vacant, you're paying in. If they change the rules on you in terms of tenant placement, I'll give you another example. Homeowners associations in the States sometimes have the power to define a percentage homeowners versus tenant occupancy in the complex, which means if they decide at a trustees meeting to change the percentage, so let's say they go from a 50% homeowners occupation to a 60% homeowners occupation as part of their bylaws, all of a sudden you might find yourself in a situation when your tenant leaves that you can't place a new tenant because they'll be too close to the ratio where you'll be over the ratio of tenants versus homeowners, which means your property is going to be vacant forever unless you actually move into it yourself. I don't like other people having that kind of control over my property, over who can move in, over whether they can move in or not, over lots of little things. There's other problems with homeowners associations as well. Sometimes they can be pedantic over rubbish. If you don't control the building, you've got a massive, massive, massive risk on your investment. Another great story is a friend of mine bought a property in Florida, not quite in Orlando, but somewhere in Florida. Paid cash for it, was generating $1,500 a month in rental income. After paying homeowners fees and his structure costs, because he went and set up a very fancy offshore structure in the Isle of Man and blah blah blah, paid cash for the property, over $200,000, was generating $1,500 a month, and was negative. Did not have $1 positive income after paying the structure costs and the homeowners fees, and he had a tenant in place paying a great rental. Scary stuff. Why are we investing if we don't generate any cash flow? It's certainly not for the perceived capital growth, because that's on the never basis. That's when you sell or when you refinance. That's the cherry on top. We invest for cash flow. So if I've got a block of 140 units or 200 units or 260 units, and I've got, let's say, 95% occupied, and I control the whole building, that means I'm getting a diversified income from 140 tenants or 250 tenants or something like that, which means I've got a buffer of positive cash flow if I've geared it correctly, that even when tenants don't pay, I can have 30, 40, 50% of the building not pay their rent, and I can still pay the bond and not have to put in $1 extra. That's the type of investments I like. Something where I don't need to go hunt down money every time something goes wrong, because in property, things do go wrong. We need to plan for these things. We need to understand that properties will be vacant. We are going to have to do a renovation. We are going to have tenants that don't want to move out. We are going to have bad situations in property, and the more property you have, the more problems you're going to have. Just letting you know. I'll give you some other problems with single family homes. It's not as bad. Oftentimes a single family home might be in a gated community, or might be in a community where they've got a clubhouse or something like that, in which case there's going to be a homeowners association. And guess what? They have similar powers to the homeowners associations in condo complexes, and can generally be very, very difficult. If I can't control the community, I don't want to own property in those communities, because it's an unnecessary risk. I'd rather own 200 units in one block on one property with great management at a discount compared to single family homes where I'm paying them 10% income and a placement fee. I'd rather pay 3.5% commercial, professional property management. And they have a proper marketing budget, and they know how to get the right tenants, and they know how to credit vet them properly, they know how to collect the rent. That's what I want. I don't want unprofessional property managers trying to... The other problem with single family homes, and this is the major one with management, is the travel time. To manage a portfolio of 10 or 20 or 30 homes in disparate areas is difficult. And that's why they charge quite a lot of money, is the travel time to deal with any issues with any of the tenants is hectic. So taking these things into account, what we don't buy, we don't buy single family homes anymore, I don't buy condos, and I don't buy industrial flex space. I might buy industrial flex space if it's the right tenant profile. If I believe the business will be here for another 10 to 15 years and not be disrupted, and I can get great debt, I might buy industrial flex space. Typically, if it's an Amazon lease or a FedEx lease, I'm happy. I believe they'll be around here for a very long time. But if it's just a normal engineering shop or a normal business, I'd be hesitant to buy industrial flex space unless I've got an amazing deal and it's at a huge discount. But I definitely don't buy single family homes, and I don't buy condos, even when there's an opportunity to fix and flip or something like that, because it takes the same amount of effort for me to vet a $100,000 condo as it does for me to vet an $18 million block of apartments. It's the same effort. I've got to go walk the property, I've got to analyze the expenses of the homeowners association or the expenses of the building. Same thing. So if I'm going to buy one property, I've got to look at it as if I'm buying the whole thing, the whole complex, which means I've got to understand the financials of the body corporate or the homeowners association. And if I don't, there's a huge risk there. These are some things to take into account, and that's why we don't buy single family homes or condos anymore. Unless I can buy the whole building, don't buy it. Anyway, have a great day. Hope that was insightful. Please share it if you thought it was valuable, and keep investing, keep trying to find a way to do great deals, and I'll catch you on the flip side.